archaeological findings. And you know, when we talk about just studying our history as a people, there's a lot of valuable information that is to be found in, you know, meaningful study of these remains. I mean, multiple remains, just all kinds of stuff they're finding up there. So I think when that kind of happened and people found out that there was a Taiulu, the headless body that was discovered. I mean, there was only one other one discovered in the CNMI. So I think when that kind of started happening, it kind of just dovetails with this whole like renaissance of language and culture, and I think it really raised a lot of people's eyebrows. But like I said, this is all like kind of happening real time during the pandemic, so maybe it didn't get the attention that it deserves. So it's good to see those guys. 829, Shawn Gumataotao here. We're getting Senator Telo on. She's actually already here. Shawn, morning, my friend.
I wanted to add real quickly. Yeah. Back in 2009, when we first started the whole Guam buildup issue, and between me being in Washington D.C. and being back and forth and assisting the former governor Felix Camacho on the issue, it's so crazy to hear now in 2021 that the idea that that we have to continue to kind of badger the federal government for support on protecting our cultural and historical resources. I just can't believe it is still happening. They were supposed to be done with this about 4 or 5 years ago in terms of making sure there was a plan, the construction of the repository, the support of that. Today, to know that the group is having yet another protest about this issue, you just have to scratch your head. It just doesn't make any practical sense.
Yeah. Senator Telo, you have any thoughts on this?
Absolutely. I remember I was in the 30th Guam Legislature. And good morning. Good morning, KUAM family. Good morning, KUAM. You threw me in there. But yes, I was, good morning. I was with Shawn and during that time that this was all going down, and they agreed. And then, of course, being with the Cal administration when they were working on the 4 pillars and some of this, I mean, that was one of the reasons why Governor Calvo was not very supportive moving forward, because of they were reneging on some of the agreements that they made.
Yeah.
So this is a problem, and I'm thankful for all the activists that are out there. Maria, who's been on top of this from day one to ensure that, everyone's eyes are open, and seeing what's really going on. And this is not being swept under the table or under the rug per se.
I think it's interesting to go back to that time where Governor Calvo, who was a Republican, was like, no, I'm pulling the plug on the buildup, totally don't support it, which is kind of something that I expected to hear from this governor, Governor Liu. And I know a lot of people in the activist community feel shortchanged by her leadership or lack of it on the buildup. I think that it was real telling when she would brag when we had these press conferences last year, and she would just kind of routinely brag about, oh yeah, I talk to the admiral every day. Oh yeah, I got his number. Yeah, we are on the WhatsApp. Oh, we send each other memes. We're best buddies. And with that stuff being said, like at almost every press conference, I just would scratch my head and be like, how are we going to get any kind of equity or fair treatment in this programmatic agreement? And lo and behold, that's exactly. I mean, unfortunately. How
Chris, if I can chime in, I think, and I've talked to some of my friends that are at Adaloop about this issue. They're obviously the focus right now is on COVID-19.
Right.
So as the other issues that are bubbling up between, you had Sel on earlier about transportation issues. You have all this stuff that's happening in our seaport, our airports. All these other issues are happening on the fringe. Obviously, the focus is on a pandemic. With everything getting back, you're right. Things are starting to kind of bubble up. Oh, by the way, we've been doing this for the last couple months. It makes, it's like trying to balance your workload. If you're like a small business owner like myself, like I have a bunch of things going, you have to kind of have some good balance. And when there's a lack of balance, then these issues seem like, hey, what have you been doing for the last 12 months? And so you're right, the little bit of kind of a punch here and there that we are paying attention to the programmatic agreement. Man, I remember back in the first drafts, I mean, I read it. I thought it was, I went through it and had many iterations. A lot of articles, just like the conversations we're having here, would pop on it as well. So they all see it. it's about a review. It's about getting keeping to their promises. But from a policy point of view, it's still kind of dragging. And with changes now in the administration in Washington, D.C., expect more of that drag and change to continue.
Go ahead, Senator.
No, absolutely right. Shawn is absolutely right. And it's unfortunately that this administration would be able to chew gum and walk at the same time. Even with the pandemic. And that means you have to think outside the box. Where many people are complaining that so many people are in the government are at home and not doing anything and still getting paid. We could have still moved forward. The SHPO could have kept moving in that direction. I think that we had a riff at the very beginning, remember, between Ugin and of course, Patrick Lujan, I think, who is now.
Yeah.
So I think that was a big issue, but I don't think there was enough reach out to the public that they needed to do. And I don't think the governor was there that much to really ensure that the public, that they are staying on top of this.
Yeah.
And we didn't see that. We didn't see that at all. So
yeah, it's unfortunate. I remember when they had, a dozen organizations meet with the governor down in Adelup, and I remember my daughter was one of them, and there was just such promise when Lou was elected, because I think she was able to really rally like a lot of these activists and community groups who, she was the Magahaga, right? So she had their support, but I think after that first meeting, a lot of people really were like, wait a second, what we're hearing from her with the national security argument wasn't really maybe what they expected to hear. And so I think that a lot of people were surprised by that, and she lost a lot of support on that. But you're right, Senator. It's just unfortunate. I feel like the removal of Linda Uggan as the SHPO, this was, I feel like it was, it was a blatant abuse of the merit system. And this is a story that I really covered. I'm close with Linda. And I think when she started to talk about invoking the stipulation that would just put the brakes on the whole buildup, and then you saw the administration go after her, actually take her out of that job and replace her with someone, who was just going to do what the administration wanted to do, that was huge. And I don't know why we didn't see enough. I felt like
it was so disappointing. Shawn was there from the very beginning, when this all started out, and so was Linda. So she had a wealth of information, history and what went on. Some of this stuff is not documented, it's these conversations that were made. I remember when she spent, it was weeks and weeks, even at night, when I was leaving the office, her and Arthur Clark were still going at it. So losing her was a great failure on our part.
Yeah, it was. And I remember
I have a different perspective on it. I think that when we think about the process itself, is that whether or not it's Linda Uggan or if it's Pat Lujan or Carlotta Leon Guerrero, it doesn't matter who's in that seat. It's important that the process that is set out for the program itself is being followed. I think you're seeing in Japan that the construction of the base in Futenma is beginning, but very slow. That means that on our end, in the Guam end, it's incumbent on the federal government, in cooperation with the government of Guam, specifically the agencies who are mandated to support them, the public works of the world, the parks and recs of the world, the like, have to be in lockstep, ensuring the process is followed. It's not saying that we don't want it. It's saying that these guys have got to do what they're paid to do. If you're in the pandemic and you're teleworking, they should have been working every day throughout the entire last year to ensure the process was being completed. And that's why I feel a little bit different on it. I appreciate all of the protests on it, because maybe they're not moving fast enough or not taking care of those issues. But there are issues that our government agencies need to continue to be in front of mind. If they're not doing it, then I think we got a bigger problem in our hands.
Right. Mm-hmm. Shawn, I always value your perspective. And, like I said, I feel like it's back to business. We haven't really had this level of conversation about the buildup since before the pandemic. So it's a good talk. Senator, I wanted to bring you on. There was just a couple things that we wanted to bend your ear about. One of them was the CRER, basically the revenue numbers that you guys get as senators, and I know you had some issues with that, Senator. So go ahead and give it to us, and then I had a couple of things I wanted to chime in about. So.
Sure. And thank you, Chris, for that. And yeah, that's one of the things that I look forward to every month. It's supposed to be at the given to the senators by the 21st of every month on the report on the financials, the actuals. And unfortunately, we're still having, well, at least I am. I think my other colleagues, so I asked if they got a copy of it, didn't get a copy of it. And they received it at the legislature on the 20th. Yesterday was the 21st. We still haven't gotten anything. And thank goodness, this speaker that's at the legislature, now Speaker Chalahi, had sent it to us, knowing that it was not emailed out by the Committee on Rules. So she went ahead and emailed it to all of our senators. So I'm really happy for that. She is definitely trying to make sure that transparency there is there at the legislature as well under her jurisdiction. So greatly appreciate the speaker for doing that. And as we're looking at the CRE report, I mean, the biggest issue here, and I think that it's a total red flag, is the special funds. You're looking at that. It just customs and quarantine alone is tracking almost $900,000 below projected revenues. And it's ironic, and if you're reading this, I know that KUAM as well as other media, when they look at these CRER reports, it's like a moving target. And for instance, in this November CRE report, it was stated that it was 89,750. That was the actual revenue coming in for customs and quarantine. But if you look at December, the actuals, if you look back at November, now it's 47,547. So it is totally a moving target, and we're not seeing anything really go up here. We're starting to see these special funds going down, and if you look at it, you're looking almost at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost 7. You're looking at about, oh my gosh, $6 million short. And now these special funds, they're appropriated to certain agencies like Customs and Quarantine, like GVB, like Guam Highway Fund. And when you're having this much in shortage, you need to readjust your budget. And it's very concerning. We wanted, I waited not to say anything until we hit the first quarter. And now that we hit the first quarter, you're looking at about 11 million in just regular general fund revenue shortage. And then you're looking at this one at almost 6 million. So that's quite a bit of funding, that some agencies not going to be able to get when they're appropriated their allotment, every month. So this is an eye opener, and I don't know how the administration is continuing to hire additional people with.
Oh, you took the next question right out of my mouth. I was about to say, should we be hiring a deputy at Revenue Tax for 92 grand and with these kind of numbers?
Yeah, this is very alarming, and I think government of Guam needs to start looking at this and finding out where they're going to start making these cuts now, today. I mean, we're all like, I think this administration has been relying on all this federal funding. Well, I think it's stopping right now. It's really stopping, and it's not adjusting the numbers that are coming in for the actuals versus projected. It's amazing if you look at these numbers, and they don't think anything's wrong. Like I said, the hiring continues on. Yeah. And I think if we're going to ask them to clean their house, at the very beginning of this term, I've sent a letter to central files that oversee the budgets of the legislature and asked for the same transparency. And looks like I'm going to have to FOIA them, because I tell you, the question I asked was very simple on a balance of what is the legislature's balance or their lapsed funds. And it was a very simple question. Please detail the budget balance for every senator as well as central files. And they come back with an answer. The Guam legislature has no public record to identify as detailed budget balance in this in its possession. They know exactly what I'm asking for, but because I didn't say it correctly, so now I have to be more creative in getting the right answer from them. I mean, why are they hiding this money at the legislature? How much does did after the end of this, the 35th, how much lapses is at Central Files? How much lapses does every single senator have in their budget? And they're not giving me this answer. I don't know why. And then I asked for, if you look at the staffing pattern for Central Files, the staffing pattern, I don't even see half of these people that are there.
Oh Lord.
I'm like, where are all these people, you know?
Are you saying there are ghost employees at the legislature, or where Central Files? Yeah.
I just like to know where they are and what they're doing, you know, what their job responsibilities are to have this many people working at the legislature. Some people say that some of these staffers are coming from other senators' offices that are put in there, but paid under Central Files money.
Yeah, that sounds like
a
that.
Senator is given a budget. That budget is meant to cover your expenses at your office and to cover salaries for your employees. So how is it that you're using Central Files money to cover other staffers? You know, we need to look at our own house and clean our own house. You know, I talk a lot about the administration and what they need to do, but let's start first with us. So I'm, you know, going to put out a FOIA asking for all this information.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, even our senators have to send FOIA. That's where we're at with transparency in this administration.
That's sad. Well, at least, you know, well, with this legislature, that's actually, you know, Senator Barnes is now the oversight chair of, you know, Committee on Rules, and she also oversees central operations. So,
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that, you know, at the beginning I've been working on to try and bring transparency to our body.
Let's talk about your house for a second there, Senator Telo, because this is something Shawn and I were talking about before the show started. Is one of the big moves was the former policy director at Adelup now is the executive director of the Guam legislature. We're talking about Carlo Branch. Shawn,
yeah.
that's kind of a big move, right?
Yeah, well, it's ironic that you bring that out, because one of the questions I asked in my letter was the staffing pattern and the salaries of individuals as well. And you know, the former director was Joe St. Augustine, who I thought he did a great job. Joe was very cordial. He always took care of everyone. He was very fair. You didn't feel that he was Democrat or Republican. He was just a very fair guy. So when I received this, I noticed that on the staffing pattern for January 12th, 2021, there are at least 5 individuals who are receiving less money than they did in the 35th. Same position, less money. Like one individual received $17.50 an hour, now receiving $14.50. So you have that. Then you get to the executive director, Carlo Branch, who got a raise. He was the only one at Central Files that got a raise, while everyone else either stayed the same or received less.
What's he making?
Now he's making $38.46 when the former director was making $37, but that's still that's more than 3,000 more gross. I haven't did the math on it, but during a time like this, why are we giving raises to individuals? So it's of all things, it's so funny how you brought that up. Why would they bring Carlo Branch in and give him a raise from that position?
Well,
I don't know. I want some answers, though. I'm sure the people go on want some too.
Right on. Well, Senator, thank you for coming on. Definitely like how you, throw around the shade like it's nighttime. I love that.
Well, I just think that, I might not be very popular with people out there because, I call individuals out, but I just think that we need to stop turning a blind eye, and whatever works for us, is okay. And then we turned a blind eye for everybody. I don't think that the people of Guam wanted us in this position to do that. And if you're doing something wrong, then you should be called out on it, and I just think that I'm just going to go that path, whether I'm, not liked or what. I'm sure I picked up a lot of enemies because of this, calling them out, but I don't do it.
Hey, send me the staffing pattern unless it's up on the website.
Yeah,
I like that.
Don't do it to create enemies or to create issues. I do it to correct, issues. I do it to correct it and to bring fairness and parity. That's, I think, what the people want. So,
all right. Well, I don't think anyone's going to disagree with you. Yeah. Thank you, Senator.
Okay. Thank you, Shawn. It's always good to see you, John, too, as well.
Okay. All right.
Adios.
That's that. Senator Telo Taitague. So, Shawn, I thought that was an interesting move, bringing Carlo from Adelup down to the legislature. It kind of leaves me wondering who's directing policy at Adelup now.
No, that's a great question, Chris. I think by bringing Carlo back to the legislative branch of government, it's actually a good thing for them, especially as they're heading into the next part of the cycle, which is the preparation for the reelection or at least the task of the reelection of the current governor of Guam. Yeah. That also means that at the House, who's managing all the policy? It's a good question.
Right, but obviously Carlo is down at the legislature to kind of keep things in line. I mean, as the governor and lieutenant governor announced their reelection effort, I'm pretty sure they've got some big plans, maybe some big measures that they want to get passed, within the next couple of years. And, Carlo reminds me of that dude in Game of Thrones. God, what's his name, Jay? The
little one?
The non, yeah.
Oh, Tyrion?
Tyrion, yes.
Lannister?
Yeah. Because, I mean, this is a guy, nobody elected him, but he's, able to orchestrate and maneuver and, get things done for this administration. So there's no doubt that that's going to be his role at the legislature is to try and, crack that whip and get the Democrats to pass the things that, Auntie Lou wants passed. So.
I'll say publicly, I am a huge fan of Carlo Branch. I think the world of him. I had the privilege of working with him during the Camacho administration. He is at the legislature for a reason, and he is to help push not only the agenda, but also to ensure there's a re-election of a Democrat governor of Guam. So it's not a. They couldn't have telegraphed that whole issue as big as they did. Right. But what happens at Adelup now is how do they work without him?
Right. And I think Carlo Branch is just very good at what he does.
He's fantastic, man.
You're right though. What do they do without him? Because I felt like he was just as when I was doing news. I mean, and even during the pandemic, if you really want an answer, like really, really, Carlo is the guy that you get a hold of. He's the guy that you shoot the WhatsApp to. When Crystal or Janella aren't responding, you shoot it to Carlo. And so he's
in the room.
He's that backstop.
He has to be in the room. He has to be part of that discussion. So right. It's an important part of what he did.
So
I say that because I did it before. That's
right.
Why I know that.
That's if you guys don't know, Shawn was. He was basically. I don't want to say you were the Carlo Branch of the Camacho administration, but you were like the communications guy for that administration. So you're very familiar with how all of this stuff works. But moving Carlo from Adelup over to the legislature, obviously that's going to kind of leave a big gaping hole in the communication side, because I felt like a lot of times when you would ask the Crystals or the Janellas for information, it would really come from Carlo, right? So now I'm just wondering with Carlo down there, and then Crystal has been promoted to the communications director. What kind of challenges is she going to face? Because I mean, the heat is going to be on. This is the reelection effort. I mean, it's going to be 2 years of them trying to just paint this picture that they deserve another shot. So how challenging is that going to be for someone as new to the role as Crystal is?
Now, as a guy who was in starting the second half of the first term of Governor Camacho as the director of communications, I think the pivot is always going to be, what do we need to do to finish the platform? And so the challenge that Crystal's going to face, I think we talked about this particular issue back in March. It was about how do we tell the people of Guam, or how do we show that the governor of Guam is, well, the whole administration is being realistic and then reassuring in terms of their performance. So I think that's going to be her biggest challenge. And, she's kind of doing it right now, and it remains to be seen. This whole year is going to be a critical one, especially as we get into the cycle. So we'll see. It's too early to tell just how effective that's going to be, at least the move.
Right.
But from experience, it's a tough one. And you got a guy like Carlo, who was there and helping guide policy with a lot of experience.
Right.
Now taking it a bit of a different level. It's going to be a big deal.
And then, Shawn, I think another thing that's going to be different about it is the last year, and I'm assuming maybe the first few months of this year is her role is really communicating this like vital information to the public. You know, where am I going to get vaccinated? Where am I going to get tested? Really like highly functional messaging, right? But as we get closer to the reelection, as we try and like inch our way out of this pandemic, that messaging is going to have to change.
Right. And Chris, one of the things I think you can look at early on in the show today with Selva Balta. She has to also manage, excuse me, she has to also manage what's happening at the Guam Transit Authority. She has to manage what's happening at Parks and Rec. She has to manage what's going on at Department of Labor. All of those things are happening right now on different fronts outside of the emergency response. Right. So I think that we kind of forget that the director of communications role is not just, I'm going to spend 100% of my time managing the worst pandemic that we've seen in our generation, but it's also from a political point of view. Are we doing the right things to reach over to make sure we're taking care of things? I think the business community has a different perspective of that work right now so far. Yeah. So again, it's not just one singular issue, it's everything that's being thrown at the office of the governor today.
Good point, Shawn, and it's definitely changed. I remember last year, and even pre-pandemic, we couldn't even get a director of a government agency without getting approval from, at the time it was Janela, right? But that's totally changed with the pandemic. The directors, I feel like they're given a lot of freedom to come on the link. I communicate directly with them, but I remember it was just funny because we would interview a director and they would have a foot in the mouth type of moment. Like I remember Ray Taposnia with the whole Guma Tranquilidad, turned it into sell it to the hotel or whatever. And then so after a few of these happened, the policy from Adelup was like, oh, no more director interviews unless it's cleared by Janela. And so we'd be reaching out to people and asking about rev and tax, like what's the status of refunds? Oh, did you run it through Janela? But that has totally changed, right? So I don't know if that was like a conscious separation of their involvement in the messaging of all the line agencies, or was it just because there was a pandemic and they had to get all the pandemic stuff out?
Well, right, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, we heard Sel today kind of talking about a whole bunch of different issues. I mean, has he had those discussions with Crystal, and has Crystal talked to the other members of the cabinet, from the National Guard to public health to the Hagåtña restoration? It's hard to say. It's a tough job. I mean, you're on your phone all day long. You're talking with the members of the cabinet. You're trying to guide them, and then also the most important part that I think we're forgetting is it in fact reflect the position of the governor of Guam. Right. Okay, I think you have the opportunity to have the lieutenant governor on once a week, but the biggest takeaway from the whole thing is, does that messaging, is it consistent with Lou Leon Guerrero, who at the top of the entire organization is driving this big machine? So challenge to Crystal. I think she's off, she's out of the blocks. Okay. But, can it be sustained as we head into the next cycle? That's good luck to her, and I'm excited for what that means for her. But it is a big deal.
It's going to be hot because you're right. The next 2 years, I mean, everybody and their primo is going to be gunning for Adelou. People are going to be throwing all kinds of stuff, accusations, allegations, right? So,
I mean, if you put those aside, Chris, think about the platform itself, right? They're going to take the platform out and they're going to say, "Hey, you said this, this," and then did they in fact, what do you call it, achieve it? I will just tell a little secret. When I was working for Governor Camacho, that platform literally was on the top of my desk, and I looked at it every single day to make sure that we were consistent with that and ensuring that we actually accomplished it, because the electorate's going to remember, and then they're going to put it right on when they go in the voting booth. Should I give them another chance?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because there was a point, I think it was last year, right before the pandemic hit, where Sabrina and I had the hardest time finding the platform, because like you said, I mean, it's kind of like, okay, we're reaching the halfway mark. Let's dust off their platform. Let's see what they said, how they said it, and, when they said they would do the things they did. But it was really hard to find. I had to go back in my chats. They had it up on their website. It was taken down, but we do have a copy floating around, and that's why when we kind of
I have it too. I think I got it from Sabrina or from you. I got a copy too.
Yeah. And so that's why I think when we go into these issues like this ethics commission, I'm really disappointed to just hear the response be that, oh, well, they've been trying to do that for years, so whatever, because they kind of really campaigned on that there was no ethics commission and that they would be the administration to stand it up. And so when you hear that it's not funded,
priority, Chris. It's bottom line. It's a priority. Is that the priority of the governor of Guam? And it reflects her, and not to be so blunt, but it's kind of on her. If it's not her priority, it's not going to move forward.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's interesting that, I definitely appreciate Lieutenant Governor Josh coming on every Tuesday. But the governor is a big, I'll be honest with you guys, we don't even ask anymore. I mean, I just got tired of asking, and I think with the governor, I guess my advice to her would be to get a little thicker skin heading into this re-election, because as you saw during the press conferences, she's very easily triggered, and not really one to